In reality, somebody has been, if not exactly to every minute nuance and detail where you are, they've been close to it. Somebody somewhere has, and somebody somewhere has gotten through it. So for those people that you mentioned earlier that are going through a hardship like that feel like there's no way out, that are starting to lose that hope, I would say you've got to understand that if anybody else got through it, you're human the same way that they're human. And if they could get out of it, you could get out of it. And the only way, by the way, that you won't get out of it is if you stop.
As humans, we just tend to go in these dark spaces at times, right? We have those challenges, we have those hardships, right? And so what's something that you could say to somebody who is currently going through a hardship, who's going through maybe like really tough life changes right now, where they're feeling as though things feel hopeless and they don't necessarily know what that next right step is? Like, what would you say to them right now?
There's this story that I heard a really long time ago. And you'll have to forgive me because my answers tend to be kind of long. But I had a coach one time that told me this story, and this was right around that same time period. It was one of my old coaches from high school, actually. And I was talking to him during this time period where everything was so tumultuous with the family, the gymnastics career, and just everything seemed like it was going wrong. And I reached out to him and I was like, man, what? You've given me so much advice over the years. What would you tell me now? Like, how am I supposed to deal with this? Because I was almost at the point of shutting down myself. Like, I think that's a really important thing for people to keep in mind, is that whenever you hear stories like that, it's not like the people who went through those experiences had this superhuman ability to remain optimistic and hopeful throughout the course of that entire experience. Like we have the same emotions everybody else does, whether it's me or whoever you look up to, Eric Thomas, maybe it's Whitley, maybe it's whoever it is, right? But everybody has those exact same points of struggle where you start to examine your own mentality and say, is it worth it? Am I cut out for this? Can I get through this? Everybody has that internal conversation. So don't get judgmental about yourself. Don't get down on yourself. Don't feel bad about yourself for having that mental conversation. It's a matter of taking control of what you do about the conversation and what you do with it, right? So I reached out to this coach and he said, have you ever heard about the story of the guy who fell in a hole? And I was like, dude, I'm really like going through some stuff. I'm not in the mood for a fairy tale or a parable or whatever like children's book you're about to throw at me right now. I don't really like, that's not the vibe I'm on right now. I need help. And he said, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen to this because I'm the coach and I'm going to coach you right now. I was like, fine, let's go. What is it? And he said, there's a guy walking down the street when he falls in the hole. And the hole was so deep and the walls were so steep that he could not possibly get out. And he started scratching and clawing and trying to climb his way out. And he just couldn't do it. But he sees the opening at the surface where other people are walking by, and he starts shouting up for help. And he's saying, help, I'm stuck down here. Can somebody help me? And sooner or later, he sees a doctor walk by on the surface, and he's got his white lab coat on, and he clearly looks like a doctor. He's got the stethoscope around his neck, and the guy shouts up, doctor, can you, man, I'm stuck down here. Can you help me at all? Is there anything that you can do for me? So the doctor pulls out a pen and pad from his lab coat, writes out a prescription, tears it off, throws it in the hole, and he walks away. So our guy's stuck down there like, you're a doctor. You're supposed to help me. And all you did was what am I supposed to do with this? I can't even get out of here. And you're writing me a prescription. And so he starts to get even more down on himself. He starts to judge himself. He starts to say, I'm never going to get out of here. He starts to say, why was I so stupid to fall in this trap in the first place? Why is everybody else seeming to avoid this? They're walking just peacefully on the street and not falling down here. What's wrong with me? And so he starts to go through this mental process, and eventually he looks up and he sees a pastor walk by. He's got his Bible in his hand and the preacher robes on, and he shouts up, Father, I'm stuck down here. Can you do anything to help me? And the preacher, of course, well, he's a preacher, so he's got to be at least a little bit more receptive to the guy. And he stops and he talks to him for a little bit and he prays with him. And eventually he's got to go, though. It's Sunday. He's got church service. He's got places to be. So he takes out a pen and pad from his robes, writes out a prayer, tears it off, throws it in the hole, and he walks away. And now our guy's completely hopeless. He's like, man, nobody's able to help me. I can't get out of here. I'm climbing, I'm scratching, I'm clawing, just nothing is working. And sooner or later, he looks up at the surface and he sees a friend walk by. And he shouts up, hey, man, it's me. I don't know if you can do anything, but I'm stuck down here and I could really use some help. And the friend reacts a little bit differently. He starts to look over the edge of that hole that he's in and he assesses the situation. He takes a deep breath and then he jumps. And our guy's stuck down there and he goes, man, what in the world are you doing? Now we're both stuck down here. And the friend says, yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out. And so the point of that story is not about the person who was stuck down there in the first place, because that person fell on hard times and hardship and adversity and opposition and trial and tribulation, just like everybody else does. The story is about there's somebody else who's been there before. And as human beings, what we tend to do is isolate ourselves. But in reality, it's a choice. In reality, somebody has been, if not exactly to every minute nuance and detail where you are, they've been close to it. Somebody somewhere has, and somebody somewhere has gotten through it. So for those people that you mentioned earlier that are going through a hardship like that feel like there's no way out, that are starting to lose that hope, I would say you've got to understand that if anybody else got through it, you're human the same way that they're human. And if they could get out of it, you could get out of it. And the only way, by the way, that you won't get out of it is if you stop. Think about every single bad day that you didn't think you were going to live through. Think about every single bad day that you thought was going to break you. You're still here. If you're listening to it, you're here. So clearly you've got a 100% record. You haven't taken a loss yet that you haven't been able to fight through, that you haven't been able to come back from. So the only way that you lose is when you stop. The same coach that told me that story, by the way, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He showed up to the gym every single day with a megaphone because he couldn't yell anymore because his body was so run down. And he was the same person that told me, whenever you get in a situation like that, put your head down and keep putting one foot in front of the other. By the time you finally get to a place where you can pick your head up again, you're going to be in a better place. It's about putting one foot in front of the other. It's not about trying to find the magic solution. It's not about trying to be a superhero. It's not about trying to be anybody or anything that you're not. It's about putting one foot in front of the other until you're in a place where you can finally pick your head up again. And if you can just do that and stay in the game and remain faithful over few, you're going to be all right.
When it comes to some of the limitations that people actually put on themselves in terms of, even seeking out help. If there's someone out there right now who is kind of on that fence of taking a chance on themselves, to reaching out, getting help, or investing in themselves to get them to that next step, like what's something that you could share with them in even overcoming that limiting mindset of keeping stuck and not investing in themselves? Like what would you say to them?
I would say that the price of regret is significantly higher than the price of whatever that investment is. And I think that for me, what helped get me through it, to be honest with you, was fear. It was the fear of thinking, what would my potential be? It's the fear of thinking, what unexplored potential do I have? It was the fear of wondering, if I did this and it led to something like what my life looks like now, would I miss out on that? And I think a lot of people are so afraid to take those risks. And it doesn't really make any sense because you already don't like what you have now. And it's like, why wouldn't you take the chance on getting something better? If you don't like your current circumstance or situation, what exactly are you so afraid of losing? What exactly are you so terrified of reaching out on a limb and taking that step and making that investment for? Because you know that you don't want to stay where you're at. So why are you afraid of losing it? And the reason is because most people would rather be comfortably miserable than uncomfortably growing. And that's kind of a paradox. It's an oxymoron, but most people are more comfortable staying where they are than they would be taking that chance. But I think if you can really ask yourself, what am I capable of? And how big is that gap between my potential and my reality? That should light a fire under you. Like, you should not be okay with that gap being too big, or because it's going to be a sizable gap for everybody. Let me rephrase that. You should not be okay with not doing anything about that gap between your potential and your reality. That should get under your skin. That should frustrate you, that there's something you could be doing to close that gap and you're not. I don't want to go to church on us, but that's a disrespect to the gifts that you were given.